Hello, Petal. How you doing? How's it going? I cannot believe we are at the end of another book. I always feel sad in a sense, but then again joyful because I know another one's going to come afterwards, so ooh! Welcome to our new listeners. Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you here. And as ever, everybody is able to put comments in the comments section. We love to hear from you all, and I'm very grateful that you're here. I can't believe it's chapter 22. I've got a bit of a lump in my throat. But the next one we'll be doing is Paint Your Dragon, which is one of my favourites. I mean, there was a good few votes on that one. But over autumn, I'm going to do another Robert Rankin, and I'm going to do the Brightonomicon. And also Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and the Great Glass Elevator. So hopefully we'll have those to fill up autumn, and as nights get cooler and we start wrapping up with big sweaters and big cups of tea. Even though I've been told to restrict my tea down to 3 cups a day, I mean, that is just sacrilege. Well, for me it is anyway. Tea is my main food group. And they said, brace yourselves. They said, are you holding on tight? I could have as much decaf tea as I want and just 3 normal ones. I was like, how dare you? How very dare you? Do a bit of Catherine Tate there. But it's all good fun. But no, it's sound advice. And I'm not giving any advice to anybody else. This is just advice that's been given to me by a professional for my particular situation. So, you know, whatever anybody chooses to do is their own business. But yeah, just have a couple of cups of coffee for me and a couple of mochas. That'd be great. I don't drink coffee anyway, so yeah. Now I'm off on the whiffle, and it's too early to be on the whiffling. It's too early to be on the whiffling. It's a short chapter, so I thought I'd get it done today. So hopefully we can start afresh in the next few days with the new book. But as ever, if you can hit the notifications bell, like, share, subscribe, any of those that you wish. And I've got to say, my little hamsters are happy and fluffy, and they're dancing about because they've been well looked after by you guys over this book. But yes, if you can just bing, 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 the little bell, anything you'd like to do, that would be awesome. Righto, my lovely beans. Faust Among Equals, the finale, chapter 22. Over the years, there have been many attempts to describe hell. Some more felicitous than others. Jean-Paul Sartre, for example, would have you believe that hell is other people. Narrators know, as a supreme introvert, I would agree, apart from you guys, present company accepted. I carry on, I digress. Now then, no disrespect whatsoever to the late Mr. Sartre, as fine a writer as ever honed a subordinate clause, and by all accounts a very competent amateur pianist, but no, to be disagreeably pedantic, hell isn't other people at all. Narrators know, bloody is. I digress. Other people are never worse than bloody aggravating. Hell is hell. It's a very hot. Narrators know, okay, fine, it's hot. Hot, sticky summer's ick. So, yeah, okay, we get that. I'll get back to the story, I promise. It's a very hot, noisy, unpleasant place full of inhuman tortures and bird-headed fiends. Narrators know, actually, I think that'd be the supermarket on a Saturday morning. You know, when all the families and everybody's out at the same time. I will get back to the story. I'm really sorry about this. It's a very hot, noisy, unpleasant place full of inhuman tortures and bird-headed fiends. And the moonlight walking tours, souvenirs, sweatshirts and conference weekends introduced by the new management have, if anything, added to the efficiency of an already superbly effective, eternity-spoiling unit. Any attempt at description which omits these basic elements is inaccurate. And EuroBosch is to hell as Piccadilly Circus is to England. More picturesque, perhaps, if you like that sort of thing, but definitely an integral part. The same rules apply, and one of the rules is that all stories in hell have to have an unhappy ending. The emergency exit opened. Helen looked up, catching her breath. For a moment she couldn't see anything. Then she cast her mind back, involuntarily, to a moment some years ago, although it seemed like only yesterday. "Hi," he'd said. "My name's George. You must be Helen." This strange voice, coming at her from incredibly far off, a new voice, she remembered thinking, as the particles of matter and soul that had once comprised her being were suddenly scooped back from the four corners of creation for a totally unexpected reunion. A calm, wry voice, slightly cynical but not bitter, the sort of voice... Just a cotton picking minute, she remembered thinking. I'm dead! Life and I were very adult about it all and went our separate ways long ago. No recriminations. Death is never having to say you're sorry.
Pleased to meet you, said the voice. I've heard so much about you, and...
God damn it, she'd got her legs back. And her legs too, the long, perfectly proportioned, honey-coloured ones she'd had as a girl. Not, I might add, the varicose travesties they'd fobbed her off with in her declining years. And her arms too, and her ears, and her lips, and everything, the whole ensemble, in fact, all in perfect working order. No scent of mothballs, nor corners chewed off by earth-dwelling invertebrates. Her hair was even combed, her nails varnished, cerise, which wasn't really her colour, but... Yippee! She said.
Do you mind? Retorted the voice called George. Only my head is a wee bit sensitive this morning. Would you just sign here, please?
She'd opened her eyes and seen, well, a big piece of paper with black squiggles all over it. They'd had paper in her day, back around 1450 BC, but not black squiggles.
It's just a receipt,
the voice called George had told her.
For Mephisto here, just to say you've got your body back and it works okay. Mephisto's a good lad for a foul fiend, but he does love his admin. Go on, just do a squiggle or something.
She'd found a feather in her hand, with something black and wet on the end, some sort of paint, presumably. You want me to paint something on the paper with this feather?
Yes, please.
All right. She splodged, and the pen and the paper vanished, and there she was, in this sort of place, sitting on what she could only presume was a chair, looking at something which might almost have been a table. On the table was a wine bottle, wrapped in straw, with a candle shoved in its neck. Narrator's note, the 80s. 10 points if you can name what that was. Back to the story.
I think I'll have the sole in butter, said the voice called George, followed by the stroganoff. What about you?
The voice, she noticed, was coming out of the mouth of this man sitting opposite her. He looked nice.
To eat,
he explained. Yes, she thought, definitely nice. Priorities absolutely right and everything. Over lunch, he'd explained. How he'd always wanted to meet her, Helen of Troy, and how, since he'd sold his soul to the devil for an effectively blank cheque, her having been dead for well over 3,000 years wasn't the insuperable problem it might have been, and how here they were with a ticket to ride through time and space, expense no object if she felt like coming along. This, he'd said, gesturing at the environment and nearly knocking a bowl of soup out of the hands of a passing waiter, is the 20th century AD. Not the best of times, in my opinion, except for the food. I come here for lunch most days, in fact. This place?
This century. It's worth the effort just for the pasta.
Oh.
But not the wine. He'd frowned. Phylloxera, in the early part of the century, killed off all the best varieties of grape.
In actual fact, she hadn't really taken to him all that much. Not at first. He seemed a bit arrogant. Seen and done everything, met everyone, been everywhere. The fact that he had seen and done everything, met everyone, and been everywhere only made it worse. There was also the fact that he'd brought her back to life from the grave, and gratitude is always a truly poisonous start to any relationship. On the other hand, a choice between going about with a suave, accomplished, amusing, handsome man about time and space who has virtually infinite magic powers and being dead isn't exactly something you agonise over in the small hours of the morning, and, after a relatively short while, she realised that being aggravating was only one facet of the man's multiplex persona. A significant facet, to be sure, but only one. Besides, George Faustus being aggravating had a lot to recommend it, particularly when he was being aggravating to somebody else. The Pope, for instance, or Napoleon, or the head waiter at Maxim's. She'd become quite fond of him, in fact. Which was why, the first time he'd been foreclosed upon and dragged away to hell by bird-headed fiends, she'd been really rather upset. She had no great desire to see it happen a second time. Accordingly, she turned her head and looked away. Therefore, she didn't see a howling, lurching nightmare of demons, beast, bird, and fish-headed, loathsome random assemblies from the spares box of evolution, whooping and brandishing toasting forks, kicking and dancing their way in a phantasmagorical conga against a background of leaping red flames, and, hoisted on their shoulders, the small, motionless figure of Lucky George. Imagine. There isn't enough cheese in the world, Wensleydale, Stilton and Brie, to make up a bedtime snack capable of giving rise to the sort of bad dream you'd need to picture in your mind's bloodshot eye. A riot of tentacles, pincers and talons, a maelstrom of pitchforks, meat hooks, carving knives and corkscrews, teeth beyond the wildest opium vision of dentistry, claws beyond even Satan chiropody, enough scaled hides to make handbags for all the witches in eternity, enough plastic red noses, wait a minute. Kurt Lundqvist, well and truly into the bourbon and Holt Branchwater, looked up and grinned. Thanks to enough alcohol to poison Chicago, he could now see clearly that he'd in fact succeeded, and the inevitable happy ending was chiming in nicely on cue. After all, he reasoned, as another billion brain cells fizzed into mucus slime, the fact that a bunch of penny-a-day fiends made the actual collar is neither here nor there. If he hadn't chased George into the one place on the whole campus where there was no possibility whatsoever of escape, there'd have been no colour at all.
"Drinks all round," he snarled. "Come on, move it."
The bar fiend favoured him with a look of pure hatred. "It's 2:45, he said. "Unhappy hour," he explained. "There's no one in the place except you and—"
"OK," Lundqvist replied, "so I'll have another."
As we mentioned a moment ago, the demons danced, and as they danced they sang, "For he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow, and so say all of us." All stories in hell have an unhappy ending. Unhappy for whom is at the discretion of the management. "3 cheers," yelled the lead demon, pulling off his rubber mask, "for Lucky George. Hip, hip."
"Hooray!"
bellowed Julius Vanderdecker, Sir Thomas More, Hieronymus Bosch and Leonardo da Vinci through their latex mouthpieces. "Hip, hip, hooray!" answered Niccolo Machiavelli, Christopher Columbus, Pietro Bruco the Elder, William Caxton, 2 seagulls, Lorenzo de Medici, Sir Thomas Mallory, Paul de Limburg, and Andrea del Sotto.
"Yip, yip,
hooray!" shouted the rest of the friends of Lucky George, raising their burden, pink with embarrassment and smiling foolishly, shoulder high. The bar fiend turned and scowled meaningfully.
"Hooray,"
muttered Kurt Lundqvist into his glass.
"Satisfied?"
All stories in hell have an unhappy ending. The trick is therefore to keep going so that there can be no ending. The procession halted, dumped their rubber masks and stood. No prizes for guessing what was expected to happen next. Nevertheless, Lenny da Vinci, master of the unnecessary remark, shouted, "Speech!" Lucky George looked down, smiled and scratched his ear.
"Thanks,"
he said.
"I owe you all one."
"Any time," chorused the friends of Lucky George, and, for the first time, Helen guessed exactly why they called him Lucky. The procession stayed halted and continued to stand. It's at times like these that inevitably somebody says,
"First of all, I want to thank my agent."
It is to George's eternal credit that he didn't. Instead, he made a vague gesture with his left hand and smiled. Whereupon the biggest, shiniest yellow brick road you ever saw materialised under everyone's feet, straight as an arrow it ran, straight across the middle of the theme park, due north. It was at this point that the production director, who had been watching gobsmacked from the bridge embattled by armies, leant over the parapet and threw up.
"Well, Quite, said the marketing director, standing next to him. On the other hand, his colleague looked up, hurriedly wiping his face with his sleeve. You can't be serious, he gasped. The marketing director shrugged. Okay, he said. Integrity counts for something in this game, but we've got shareholders to consider, and what it all boils down to in the final analysis is bums on seats. Not seats, insisted the production director. Spikes. Whatever! The marketing director stood for a moment, his head tilted slightly to one side, visualizing. All right, maybe it's not our idea of hell, yours or mine, but so what? We have, he added ingeniously, a duty to the public. Elitism's a thing of the past, you know. You got to go with the mood, right? No. That's your final word then, is it? Yes. The hell with you then, replied the marketing director affably, pushing his colleague off the bridge into the leaping flames below. Then he straightened his tie and marched purposefully away in search of Walt Disney. George, said Helen. Where exactly are we going? George looked down. Under his feet, still yellow bricks, although the procession had now diminished down to 2, plus a pair of seagulls circling high overhead. Does it matter? Helen snuggled closer. Not really, I suppose, she replied. Just so long as when we get there, there's going to be fitted carpets. Maybe, love. And matching curtains. Say there's going to be matching curtains, George. Oh, go on, please. All right, said George. There'll be matching curtains. Somewhere. Where? George thought for a moment. Would over the rainbow be sufficiently precise, do you think? No. Ah, he sucked his lower lip. Do they really have to match? He asked. Yes. Couldn't they clash, even slightly? Helen shook her head. George, she said, I've waited for you for over 3,000 years. I've lied for you, stolen for you, been kidnapped for you, followed you to hell and back. Don't you think I've earned matching curtains? Well, George considered. Just so long as they're not pink, he said. Well, what I had in mind was more of a sort of pinky peach, Helen replied. To go with the loose covers, which I thought of as being something like pale apricot, with perhaps just the tiniest hint of... And a shed, he added. I really must insist on a shed, somewhere I can work on the magic and that sort of thing. Helen laughed musically. If there's time, she said, I shall need a lot of shells putting up. The sun chose that moment to glint on Helen's hair, as golden as ripe corn, or, as George couldn't help thinking, more a sort of light honey with just a soupçon of goldy fawn. All right, said George meekly. Anything you say. Somewhere in the sublime, God looked up from his lathe and laughed. Oh, I love Helen. She's such a bean. So this is it. We've done it. We've got to the end of Faust Among Equals. So, we have got many, so many more that we can read of Tom Holt, because while I do have them all on paperback and hardback, I'm always happy to get them on digital copies so we can read them here. So, as I said, the next one we're going to do is Paint Your Dragon. But what do you guys think about Grail Blazers or Here Comes the Sun for afterwards? Maybe in the new year? Maybe me. I do like Odds and Gods as well. There's a lot, actually. And we have got some at the beginning. I think I did Expecting Someone Taller and My Hero at the beginning. So, but I'll put them all in the same playlist, and I'm just waffling all over again. And yes, we could always do something from KJ Parker. I think it was KJ Parker that it was his pseudonym. We shall see what we shall see. I know I promised you the Muppet Babies theme, but I listened to myself doing it the other day and I thought, oh, that was a lot better when I was younger. I did do it a lot better, and I was trying to do all the impressions and it just wasn't coming across. Neither was Fraggle Rock. I was like thinking, hey, I've let you down on that one. Because it's like doing the doozes just makes me chuckle every time and I can't help it.
Anyway, it's only a short chapter, so I'm going to try and do you something else this week. Hopefully at the weekend, but I've got a lot to be cracking on with over the next few days. But I really want to bring you a new chapter of the new book as well. So yeah, I can't believe it's only 20 minutes. I'm so sorry. We'll call it like kind of like a partial chapter, so I'll have to do a full one at some point. But yes, I will rehearse my Muppet Babies theme, and I will rehearse Fraggle Rock, and I will bring it to you in the next rendition. You always leave them wanting more. I don't think you'd be wanting that. Anyway, take it easy. Look after yourselves. Take care. Smile bright. And please leave a comment. You know, if you want to like, share, subscribe, hit the notifications bell, that would be awesome. And I'll keep on doing them as instant premieres, because I think that works really well for us and stuffs. And by all means, any comments you want to leave, you're more than welcome. I love that little bit of feedback. It's awesome sauce. So, big loves, hugs and kisses. Thank you for coming to the end of another book with me, and I look forward to sharing more with you. Hey, big love.